So, I mean, I think in light of that, I mean, obviously when there are only three members, and they all have to vote to grant a variance for it to be given. I would say something about it in the law specifically, but it would seem to be if the applicant wanted to ask you to wait until you had more members here, you could honor that request. But I mean,
Yeah.
you can vote tonight, but that's the circumstance.
Right, okay.
But at the same time, it does say you can, if there's a default, like, let's say it hypothetically went 2-1, one way or the other here. That's not 3 votes in favor, it's not 3 votes against. It would still be considered a denial by default, but within the 62 days, you could bring it up again.
You could bring it up again, okay.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, normally
We'll see how it goes.
just I want people to be aware of the situation with only 3 members out of 5.
Yeah.
It does complicate the,
Yeah, I know, yeah.
so,
All
okay.
right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. It's 7:03. We do have a quorum. There are 2 other people missing from the board. So I guess if the applicant would like to better your odds and come back next month.
Well, you can go through the thing, but I'm just
Which
saying.
is really what it comes down to.
Well, it might,
And
well, you should go ahead with the hearing. You have a public hearing, you gotta
yeah.
hear from people.
We have a public hearing, and we also want to know, everybody, that it's recorded and filmed, the meeting. So I wasn't here last month. We have a public hearing that's open, continue to be open. So I guess we can open the public hearing again, or continue it. And if you won't have anything new you want to add, other than that, we can just continue with the public hearing. Is everybody aware of the application? Is there anybody?
Can't identify what it is yet.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. The application is number 2024-066, Kyle Barut.
Yes, sir.
1 Washington Avenue in Village of Chatham. The variance he's seeking is to extend the 4-foot limit to 4 feet to 52 inches, right? 4 foot 5 inches.
Right, that's 4 foot 4 inches.
4 foot,
54 inches.
what's that? 4 inches over.
4 inches over.
Yeah, the limit. Which makes it 52 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that what I said?
No, you said 4 feet 5 inches.
All right. Anyway, that's the application in front of us. Does anyone from the public want to add or speak about that? About the public hearing that we had last month? Were you here last month?
I wasn't.
I was here. Didn't you do an on-site investigation?
I did. I know there was some more information being sought. It was asked for more information, and that information, do you have that information that was?
Well, the fence has to be set back at least 3 feet in from the fire hydrant and back, from the.
Which is where it would have been before the.
Yeah, so given that, it's probably I would imagine it's like, about 6 feet from the curb is where the fence is gonna be. It has more than 35% open, so it doesn't need the variance for that. It's not, by the code there, it doesn't create a solid wall by any means. So it is set back in on the property enough that I sent pictures looking both ways of where the fence would be, and looking to the left.
Right.
And,
So we're only dealing with the height of the fence. We're not dealing with
the extra 4 inches.
the extra 4 inches on the height of the fence. And
Yeah.
the reason that was important was because of visibility and line of sight.
Yeah, and that 35 percentage, which it doesn't
Right.
require the 35%.
Right.
Just to match the existing fence that's there
Correct.
on this other side.
And it would be no different than in line of sight and
Mhm.
4 inches above that. It's just whether that's necessary or,
Right, because it's like a split rail, so
right.
there's open spaces underneath the top rail and the middle rail.
And when I read the application over, I tell you, I'm unclear as to, and you weren't at the other meetings, why do you want to add 4 feet to the top of the fence? What's
4 inches.
4 inches, 4 feet, I'm sorry. It's a long day. 4 inches to the top of the fence. What's the reasoning?
It's just added security, keep my dogs inside, better rights.
Have they cleared a 4-foot fence?
No,
And the existing fence is 4 feet 5 inches.
Yeah, but the existing fence is along the side yard.
Yeah,
And when was that put up? That wasn't,
that was put up years ago.
yeah, it's been up years. So, does anyone have anything to add to, in pro or con to this?
It was, whether or not anybody builds a fence around here, you know, it's something, well, is it a sightly situation, is it a dangerous situation? We were concerned about the safety of the intersection. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, you can build any kind of fence you want, as long as it reaches, 4 feet, 8 feet, whatever it is. So, on the item site visit, did someone delve into the fact of us hearing the intersection at all?
Well, that's something that we need to consider, whether it prevents a safety hazard, but he has a right to put the fence up
Right.
in that line of sight. The person, I know you're a neighbor, but,
Robert Evans across the
yeah,
street.
across the street directly across the street or across Hoffman?
Washington,
You're
or
across,
Washington, the corner.
on the corner with the fence around it.
Yes,
You have a metal fence around it.
yes.
Well, there's a shrubbery there in the corner, and in the summertime, the shrubbery's way over 4 feet. There's a lot of incidents.
Steve,
Well, there's-
we're not talking about other properties.
I know we're not talking about property, I'm trying to make the point, Ken,
I know.
about an obstruction. If there's an obstruction, there's a lot of obstructions. So, that's my point.
Okay.
I'm not talking about his property
Okay.
in terms of that. I'm just saying that my thought about it when I was doing it, when I was reading the application, was that it's 4 feet, and I don't know why it can't be 4 feet. And the addition to it seems to me to be, the planning board doesn't understand why their recommendation was to not approve it based on the need, the real absolute need. And my thought about it was, is it possible to add something to the 4-foot fence on top of it that would be temporary, that would not be a permanent structure? Would that be in violation of, like, if he put something behind it,
It'd still be a fence.
Yeah,
it'd still be a
different
fence?
fence, but it would still be a fence.
it wouldn't match what's there.
Right.
I mean, even if the wooden part were 4 feet high and you had like a wire thing above
Right.
it, that still requires variance.
It still would be,
It's still
well,
a
that's
fence.
because it.
Anything that goes above 4 feet,
Yeah.
you should take into consideration what it's made of, but still, if any part of the structure is more than
Right.
the permitted thing, then they still need your approval.
And the question I had for you, Ken, was that if the 4-inch extension was approved, can it be conditional on the property, on that property? Could it ride only with the term of their need of their dog? So if the property was to be sold or to be no longer needed, could that be, in the future, could that be saying, well, it only is gonna be with this, for this need in this property? I don't know how you would reduce a fence 4 inches, but, you follow me?
I do follow you,
Yeah.
but I don't think,
If it's a
generally, I don't think you can. The reason is generally variances and other zoning permissions run with the land. There are times, for example, modifications to that have to be written out in the zoning code. Like, for example, it is not permissible for a zoning or planning board to grant a special use permit for a limited period of time,
Okay,
unless that the code of the town or village expressly says you may, under certain circumstances, grant one of a limited duration. You can't, the board doesn't have any authority on its own to put time limits on things.
okay.
So, and there's nothing in the channel code that allows for a shortened duration.
Okay.
But I mean, in the end, you know, you're gonna come down to this, lots of things talked about, but in the end, there's still, you come down to the weighing test that's in the state law, and the 5 factors you gotta look at, and that's ultimately what it hinges on.
Right. Well, does anybody else?
Now, I do wanna add one thing.
Yeah.
Just, it's a different issue, but, do the drawings updated now to show the exact location of the fence?
Send photos. To Aaron
Did you just send them today?
today.
Right, 'cause-
Late, sorry.
Because we gotta,
The only drawing I
we said this,
have,
we did say this at the meeting last time,
I have this drawing.
if you're considering a variance, the application's gotta show exactly where that thing is. So it's, you know, for example, I know it was discussed, but it should, you know, the description of the variance, for example, would expressly say that the fence has to be 3 feet inside the fire hydrant or whatever Aaron said. I mean, the variance is not just to build, request not just to build a higher fence, it's to build a higher fence in a very precise
In that
location.
spot, yeah.
So that has to be clearly set out, you know, written onto the application, or there has to be something in writing, it's a record of the zoning board that says, if it's approved, that it's, okay. You know, and the fence shall be so many feet back.
Right.
Because those all work together. I mean, an example I often use is if somebody wants to build an over-height building, it makes a big difference whether it's 2 feet from the property line or 40 feet from the property line. So that all has to be set out. You know, the impact of a big building right next to your property line is a lot worse than one that's set back. That's why, yeah.
May I interrupt you, sir? I'd like to adjourn this meeting to next month. I don't want to take up any more time on this. for
You'd
today.
like to what?
Adjourn this for the next meeting, as I was offered. When there's 5 people,
Okay.
please. I don't have much more time to separate this out. If there's something else
I mean, it's up to the
missing,
chair to decide that. I mean,
Yeah, I don't.
I think that's-
I don't want to like get too much further in if that's
Okay.
the case. Last month, I had a lot of my time in this. And I have friends here to hear all this, I'm even missing their families.
I just want
In addition.
it's up to the board. I'm just advising, and the lawyer is advising. But, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't happened before, so I don't really know how to deal with it, but if the applicant doesn't want to proceed with it and table it till next month.
I mean,
Is that
people,
basically what's-
applicants fairly routinely say, you know, I can't make it this month, or whatever. People routinely push things off.
Right.
You did open the public hearing, and so if anybody else wants to speak on it, they're entitled to, because it was noticed. You don't even have to be here for that. But I mean, if anybody else in this room wants to talk on
Yeah,
the public hearing, because it was noticed, they're allowed to do that. But then you just carry it over to the next month.
this is where it needs to be.
Correct,
Yeah,
yeah, because
okay.
the sign is there.
This is all over 4 inches.
And then the-
Which ought to be clarified on the measuring
he wanted it was gonna be closer to the fire hydrant, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay, so this is where it needs to be. All right.
So you're gonna put it,
So-
Before we close, can you clarify the method of measuring the height of the fence?
From the grade, like the ground to the top of the fence.
Okay.
Just keep it open.
I thought you said
From
the
street
bottom
grade
of
or
the top.
No, from wherever the grade, the grass, yeah, so. if it
To
was
the
on
top of the top rail?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's it.
all right. So, does anyone up on the board have anything to add? So, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting, keep the public hearing open for next month.
So moved.
So moved, all in favor? Okay.
That way I'll send out those photos too to everybody, so we,
Have the
can
photos and maybe some
Okay.
measurements on these photographs, because, you know, that line isn't there anymore, right? The stake and the line, but it has to be certain off to that curve, to pinpoint where this fence
It's
would
my
be.
property line in most,
Yeah.
so it should be kind of without saying, without
Okay.
needing a measurement, because it's according to the land that I purchased.
Right, okay, no, but there's no sidewalk there anymore, so,
That notwithstanding, my line, right, exists beyond the curb and the features of the street.
but yeah, wherever
I
that,
purchased it.
yeah, wherever
That's
that,
where, sorry.
that survey, that,
Mm.
this survey here.
this, you're calling this a survey?
Well, it's based off of a survey.
Okay.
It's based on
But,
Frederick's.
there is a better one,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
It's in the-
So-
I think in the file, yeah.
To make a decision on the fence would need those measurements, right? Okay.
Right, it's right on the property.
Yeah, great.
so what, just out of curiosity, so I have 2 dogs, and my dogs they're greyhounds, and they can clear 6 feet on the fence, like his dogs are smaller than mine. But like, that intersection I know well, there's a stop sign right there, and it's a mostly open fence. And I'm just trying to wrap my head, because it seems silly, but again, like, there's laws that are there. So it's 4 inches, so it would just tie in with what he has on the opposite side, and it would go around the property, and it'd be recessed. Like, what's the issue with that? Only because I walk all around this village, and there's so many blind spots, if it's fenced stuff, or it's vegetation that grows, like you mentioned earlier. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's gonna have to get cleared up, depending on what happens out of this, no?
No, every application is its own thing, but what happens is the zoning code has this specification that fences in the front yard cannot exceed 4 feet, and it's the town law. New York state law has extensive laws governing zoning and zoning boards of appeal. Zoning board is allowed to give an applicant relief from the zoning code, but they have to come in and they have to show exactly what it is they're going to do. And there's also statutory test, it's written out in the New York state law, about the benefit to the applicant has to be weighed against any potential detrimental impacts. This statutory structure applies to all variants, some of them are really big deals, some of them are small deals, but it's the same legal structure. If you want to do something that the zoning code prohibits, you have to come through this process to do it lawfully. Sometimes they're super simple, nobody raises any issues. A lot of times it says, like, building has to be set back at least 30 feet from the side property line. Well, you want to put a porch out, it's going to be 25 feet away, and you got a open field next to you and nobody cares. You come in, nobody cares, they fine, sometimes they're much more significant, but the law just sets out a framework for how you have to go through the process. And the simple thing here is 4 feet is the legal limit. You want to do anything different from that, you have to come through, and the board has to look at it and see what's the benefit. Is there any other way you could do? There are other things that you have to actually consider. What is the benefit the applicant is seeking, and is there another way to do it? One of the things is, could you use an electric, like invisible fence if it's to keep dogs in? You know, is it self-imposed? Is this a problem that you brought upon yourself, or is it just an inherent problem of the land? There's a lot of factors that they have to go through. Sometimes it seems like a lot of process for a really small thing. Sometimes it's a very big thing, but the state law just has the same process. But, you know, they have to consider these different things. So that's the way it works.
So we're going to adjourn until next month.
We actually need to approve the minutes.
Huh?
We need to approve the minutes from last.
Yeah.
No, just adjourning
I
this.
wasn't
Oh, I thought
here.
you did.
No, he's just adjourning this application.
I'm just adjourning this out.
Oh,
They made a vote already.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, we did vote,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. What do you want me to do now?
You know, you said you were gonna adjourn, and I said we need to vote on the minutes before.
Oh, okay. We're gonna adjourn for this meeting, we're gonna close, and reopen next month. I wasn't here last month, so the minutes are none of my business.
Well,
They look nice.
I can make a motion to approve the minutes from the November meeting. Okay.
Well, it
Done.
takes 3 people to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, three people.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, I will say
It
this.
doesn't matter anyway, so, yeah.
All you have to do is say aye or nay and vote.
Yeah, but the thing is, approval of minutes actually doesn't have any legal consequence anyway, so.
We can do it next,
We can take it next time.
we can do it next meeting.
Cheryl Elizabeth,
Um,
she's okay with it.
Okay, great. Can I keep these part of the file?
Yeah, I'll email them and print more out for everybody for next
And
week.
after great deliberation and consideration, I decided not to accept your resignation.
Very funny.
Today's Julie's last meeting. Thank you for your service, is what they say.
Yes, you're very welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah. So, we have an opening on the ZBA, on the zoning board, if anybody wants to join. You can see how much fun it is. Okay, thank you, everybody.